The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. I remember that detail because I kept thinking the weather knew something I didn't. Standing at Margaret's graveside, watching her mahogany casket disappear into the wet earth, I felt my husband's hand squeeze mine. I thought it was comfort. I was wrong about so many things that day. Margaret Chen had been more than my mother-in-law. She had been my champion, my mentor, my friend. When David brought me home 12 years ago, a nervous graduate student with paint under her fingernails and doubt in every word, Margaret saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. She taught me that strength doesn't announce itself. Simply exists, quiet and immovable like bedrock under soil. The funeral was small. Margaret preferred it that way. 63 people who actually mattered rather than 300 who felt obligated. I gave the eulogy because David couldn't. He stood frozen at the podium for 45 seconds before I gently took his place. I spoke about her garden, her terrible jokes, her fierce loyalty. I didn't mention her disappointment in her only son. Some truths don't belong at funerals. We drove home in silence. Our brownstone in Brooklyn looked different somehow, like I was seeing it through water. David's jaw was set in that way that meant he was thinking too hard about something. I assumed it was grief. I put my hand on his knee. He moved it away. Inside, he went straight to his study. I made tea that nobody would drink. The house felt wrong, too quiet, so still, like it was holding its breath. David emerged 20 minutes later with a manila folder. His eyes were red, but not from crying. There was something else there. Something I'd never seen before. Something that made my stomach drop before he even opened his mouth. He stood in the doorway of our kitchen, the folder pressed against his chest like a shield. I remember the exact yellow of the walls. Margaret had helped me paint them 5 years ago. Buttercream, the color was called. We'd laughed about how it sounded like something you'd spread on toast. Mom left everything to me. David's voice was flat, mechanical. The house in Vermont, the investment accounts, the art collection, everything. I waited for him to continue. To explain why this mattered right now, hours after burying his mother. To share his thoughts on what we should do with this unexpected inheritance. We'd talked about it before, casually. Margaret had money, not a fortune, but enough to change lives. We'd assumed it would be split somehow. We'd assumed a lot of things. He set the folder on the kitchen table. The sound of paper on wood was too loud. She left you nothing. Not a painting, not a photograph, not a mention. The words didn't land right away. They hovered in the air between us like smoke, and I kept trying to wave them away, to clear my vision, to understand what I was hearing. David, what are you saying? I'm saying you need to pack. You have 48 hours. The floor tilted. I gripped the edge of the counter. This is grief talking. You're not thinking clearly. We can discuss this when you've had time to process. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw it. This wasn't grief. This wasn't shock. This was something he'd been carrying, something he'd been waiting to release. This was relief. I've processed plenty, Sarah. I've had months to think about this. Mom and I discussed it before she got sick, before she couldn't speak anymore. She knew exactly what she was doing. The kitchen blurred. Months. He'd known for months. While I sat beside Margaret's bed reading her favorite poetry, while I made her soup she couldn't eat, while I held her hand through the pain, he'd known I was being erased. That's not possible, Margaret. Loved me, she told me. She told me constantly. David's laugh was sharp and ugly. She tolerated you. She felt sorry for me, trapped in a marriage to someone so beneath our family. She set me free. Finally, beneath your family. The words were acid. The Chen family legacy was built on real estate and restaurants, yes, but also on Margaret's father's illegal gambling operation in Chinatown in the 1940s. Margaret herself had told me. She'd been ashamed of it, honest about it, real about where money comes from and what it costs. David had always preferred the sanitized version, the one where his grandfather was a respectable businessman and his mother was old money. I met David at an art gallery opening. I was serving champagne to pay my tuition. He was there to meet clients. He told me I had intelligent eyes. 3 months later, we were engaged. Margaret cried at our wedding. I thought they were happy tears. You have 48 hours, Sarah. David repeated it like he'd practiced. I've already contacted a lawyer. This house is mine. The car is mine. The furniture is mine. You can take your personal belongings. Your clothes, your art supplies? That's generous considering. Considering what? That I spent 12 years building a life with you? That I gave up my MFA program when you wanted to move for your job? That I took care of your mother when she was dying? You chose those things? Nobody forced you, and now you're free to make different choices somewhere else. The cruelty was almost beautiful in its completeness. He'd thought of everything, timed it perfectly, waited until I was destroyed by grief and vulnerable and alone. Waited until I had no one to turn to because Margaret had been my person, my anchor in this city where I'd never quite belonged. I want to see the will. He pushed the folder across the table. I'm not hiding anything. It's all legal. All clear. All final. My hand shook as I opened it. There it was. Margaret Chen's last will and testament, dated 8 months ago, 2 months before her diagnosis. 1 month after David and I had that fight about having children. The fight where I'd finally admitted I didn't want them. The fight that had somehow made its way to Margaret within days. The document was thorough. David Chen receives the entirety of the estate. No exceptions. No alternative beneficiaries. No mention of a daughter-in-law who'd been family for over a decade, but there was something else. A single line that stood out. This will supersedes all previous versions. Okay, all previous wills are hereby null and void. It had been another will. David saw me notice. He saw the question form. He answered before I could ask. She changed her mind about you. That's all you need to know. Now pack your things. The clock started when we walked through that door. He left me standing in the kitchen we'd renovated together. I stood there for an hour, maybe more, staring at that will, reading it over and over, trying to find Margaret in those cold legal words. She wasn't there. I didn't cry that night. I moved through our bedroom like a ghost, pulling clothes from hangers, emptying drawers, fitting 12 years into 4 suitcases. David slept in the guest room, or pretended to sleep. I heard him on his phone twice, low-urgent conversations I couldn't make out. By 3 in the morning, I'd packed everything that mattered. My art supplies, my books, the photographs Margaret had given me over the years, my grandmother's jewelry, the quilt my mother made before she died. It all fit in my car, a 12-year-old Honda that had been mine before the marriage. At least he couldn't take that. I found the painting in the back of my closet, the one Margaret had commissioned me to do of her garden. 5 years ago, when she first suggested I pursue art professionally instead of just as a hobby, when she believed in me enough to pay me $1,000 for something I would have given her for free, I'd captured her roses in full bloom. Red and white and pink, chaotic and beautiful. Hung it in her bedroom in Vermont. But last year, she'd given it back. Said she was redecorating, needed lighter colors. And it hurt, but I'd accepted it. Now I understood. She'd been taking pieces of me back, erasing me slowly, preparing David for this moment. I left the painting on the bed. He could have it, could have all of it. The sun was rising when I loaded the last box into my car. David appeared on the front steps, coffee in hand, watching me like I was hired help completing a job. Where will you go? I don't know. Maybe that's the point, Sarah. His voice softened, just slightly. This doesn't have to be ugly. You can start over. You're young enough. Talented enough. This is better for both of us. Better. The word sat between us like a stone. Did you ever love me, David? He thought about it. Actually thought about it. That's how I knew the answer. I loved who I thought you were. Who you could have been. But you never wanted what I wanted. You never fit. I got in my car, started the engine, looked back at the brownstone one last time. Buttercream yellow. Margaret's roses climbing the front fence. The life I'd built, brick by brick, only to discover it wasn't mine at all. I drove. I ended up in Portland, Maine. It wasn't a plan, just the direction the highway took me. I found a studio apartment above a bookstore for $600 a month. It had terrible water pressure and drafted in winter and was the size of David's walk-in closet. It was mine. The first month was survival. I ate ramen and worked 3 jobs. Barista in the morning, gallery assistant in the afternoon, life drawing model at the art college at night. I was too tired to feel sorry for myself. I was too busy to miss the life I'd lost. The second month, I started painting again. Real painting, not the careful, pretty things I'd made in Brooklyn. I painted rage. I painted grief. I painted Margaret's face the way I remembered it before the sickness, strong and laughing. I painted David's face the way I saw it now, hollow and cruel. A gallery owner named Carmen saw my work. She was 60 Cuban and had no patience for self-pity or excuses. She looked at my paintings for 10 minutes without speaking. Then she said, "You're angry. Good. Angry art sells. I'm giving you a show in 3 months. Don't waste it." I didn't waste it. The show was called Inheritance. 23 paintings. Every one of them exploring what we leave behind, what we take, what we destroy. The centerpiece was a triptych of a house being slowly erased. First the furniture disappears, then the walls, and the foundation, until there's nothing but sky. Show sold out, every painting. The local paper called it fierce and necessary. A collector from Boston bought 6 pieces. The money wasn't fortune, but it was freedom. I could pay rent for a year. I could breathe. I thought about David sometimes, wondered if he was happy in his inheritance, if he'd kept the buttercream yellow, if he'd ever thought about what he'd thrown away. And Carmen called me into her office. It was a Tuesday in October. It's almost 6 months since the funeral. "There's someone here to see you," says he's your lawyer. She looked skeptical. "You didn't mention having a lawyer." "I don't." His name was Howard Pearson, 72 years old, silver hair, kind eyes, expensive suit. He'd driven 3 hours from Burlington, Vermont. "Miss Sarah Torres?" He used my maiden name, the one I'd kept professionally even after marrying David. "I've been looking for you for quite some time." He laid a leather portfolio on Carmen's desk. Inside was another will, Margaret Chun's will, but not the one David had shown me. This one was dated 3 years ago. 2 years before the version David possessed. Mrs. Chen retained me as her personal attorney for 41 years. I drafted 7 wills for her over that time. She was meticulous about her legacy. She changed her mind often as life evolved, but she never acted without careful thought. I couldn't speak, couldn't process what I was seeing. 3 years ago, Margaret Chen came to me with very specific instructions. She wanted to establish a trust. She wanted to protect certain assets. And she wanted to ensure that should anything happen to her, you would be taken care of. The trust was substantial. $3.7 million. Margaret had been quietly moving money into it for years. Stocks, bonds, rental properties in Vermont, a share of the family restaurant business, all held separately from the estate David would inherit. All protected from probate. All designated for me. She knew Howard said quietly. She knew exactly what her son was. She knew what he would do. She prepared for it. The room spun. $3.7 million. Margaret had loved me. She'd protected me. But why had she let David think otherwise? Howard pulled out another document. A letter. Margaret's handwriting. Shaky from the illness, but unmistakably hers. "She wanted you to have this, but only after you'd survived the first year without it." She was very clear about the timing. My hands trembled as I opened it. "My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, then you've survived what I knew was coming. You've survived David's cruelty. You've survived the loss of everything you thought was yours. You've survived me. I'm sorry I couldn't warn you. Sorry I had to let you believe I'd abandoned you. But David needed to believe it too. He needed to show himself completely. He needed to discover who you are without money, without comfort, without me. I changed my visible will 8 months before my death. I made sure David knew about it. I made sure he saw himself as the sole heir. I watched him change. I watched him plan. I watched him become the man I'd always feared he might be. But I never changed my heart. I never changed my true will. The trust I created for you is my real legacy. Not because of the money, though that matters. Because of what it represents. You were the daughter I chose. You were the artist I believed in. You're the strong woman who will take this gift and build something beautiful. David will have the houses and the furniture and the illusion of wealth. But wealth without character is just accumulation. You have something he will never possess. You have integrity. You have talent. You have resilience. Use this money wisely. Create art that matters. Build a life that's truly yours. And know that every single day, I loved you exactly as you were. You were always enough, Sarah. Always. With all my love, Margaret, I read it 3 times. 4 or 5. Tears streaming down my face. Carmen handed me tissues without comment. Howard waited patiently. "There's more," he finally said. "The trust includes Margaret's art collection, the real collection. Not the pieces displayed in the houses. The acquisitions she made over 40 years. Early works by now famous artists. Some pieces worth hundreds of thousands individually." He showed me the inventory. I recognized names. Painters I'd studied in graduate school, sculptors whose careers I'd followed. Margaret had been collecting seriously since the 1980s. She'd had excellent taste and better timing. She wanted you to curate a showing, to decide what to keep, what to sell, what to donate to museums. She trusted your eye, your integrity, your understanding of what art means. My art show had earned me $32,000. Margaret's trust was worth millions. Art collection was worth millions more. I'd gone from broke to wealthy in the span of a 20-minute meeting. But more than the money, more than the art, Margaret had given me something else. She'd given me the truth. She'd loved me. She'd believed in me. She'd protected me even as she was dying. She'd played a long game to expose her son and liberate me. "What about David?" I finally asked. "Does he know about any of this?" "Not yet." Howard's smile was grim. "But he will." Mrs. Chen was very specific about that timing as well. "The trust remains private until exactly 1 year after her death, then the documentation becomes part of the public record. David will learn what his mother really thought of him, what she really valued, whom she really loved." 1 year, I did the math. 3 more months. Howard stood to leave. He handed me his card. "Call me when you're ready. We have arrangements to make. Properties to transfer, art to catalog, and life to build." After he left, Carmen poured us both whiskey. She raised her glass. "To Margaret Chen." She played the long game. "To Margaret." I drank. And for the first time in 6 months, I felt something besides anger and grief. I felt gratitude. I felt seen, felt loved. The next 3 months transformed everything. I moved into a real apartment, 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, windows that let in light. I set up a proper studio. I hired an assistant. I started planning the art collection showing. I called it Invisible Legacies, the Margaret Chen collection. I reached out to curators, museum directors, art critics. The response was overwhelming. Margaret Chen had been known in collector circles, but her full collection had never been publicly shown. The idea of a comprehensive retrospective of her acquisitions excited the entire New England art world. I worked 16-hour days, cataloging pieces, researching provenance, writing wall text, designing the show. Carmen's gallery was too small. We secured the Portland Museum of Art for a 6-month installation. It would open in January. 2 months after the 1-year anniversary of Margaret's death. I thought about David constantly during those months. Wondered if he'd sold the brownstone, if he'd found someone new, if he ever thought about me at all. I didn't contact him, didn't check his social media, didn't ask mutual friends. Let him exist in my past like a story I'd finished reading. Then November arrived, the 1-year mark. Howard called me on a Tuesday morning. "The trust documents are now public record. David's lawyer will have informed him by now. I expect you might hear from him." I didn't have to wait long. The first message came via email. 3 lines, "Sarah, we need to talk. There's been a misunderstanding about Mom's estate. Call me, David." I deleted it. Second message came 2 days later. Longer, more desperate. "Sarah, I know you're angry. I don't blame you. I was grieving and not thinking clearly. Mom did leave you something after all, a substantial something. We should discuss this. We're still married. Community property laws might apply. My lawyer thinks we should mediate. Please respond." I forwarded it to Howard. He laughed. "Community property in New York requires assets acquired during marriage. The trust was established before your marriage and funded with premarital assets. He has no claim, none." The third message was a phone call. I let it go to voicemail. David's voice was strained. "Sarah, please. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But we can fix this. We can rebuild. I never stopped loving you. Come home, please come home." I saved the voicemail, not because I wanted to hear it again, because I wanted proof. Evidence of what grief and desperation sound like in the mouth of a man who destroyed someone because he could. The messages continued. Emails, texts, voicemails, each one more frantic than the last. He was sorry. He was wrong. He'd been manipulated by his grief. He'd been confused about what his mother wanted. He needed me. He missed me. He loved me. In message 17, the truth emerged. I'm in financial trouble. The houses need major repairs. The property taxes are crushing me. The investment accounts weren't as liquid as I thought. I need help. We were partners, Sarah. We're still partners. What's yours is mine and what's mine is yours. It's what marriage means. There it was. Not love, not regret, not genuine remorse. Just math, just calculation. No. Just the same man who'd given me 48 hours, now realizing he'd miscalculated the inheritance, now understanding that his mother had played him perfectly, I finally responded. One sentence. We're divorced, David. I filed 6 months ago. You were served. It's final. I'd filed in Maine. Uncontested. He hadn't fought it because he'd assumed I had nothing. No money, no leverage, no reason to demand anything from him. He'd signed the papers without reading them carefully. Another miscalculation. His response came in seconds. You can't do this. I'm your husband. We have history. I made one mistake. One. And you're going to punish me forever. That's cruel, Sarah. That's vindictive. That's not who you are. I almost laughed. He thought he knew who I was, thought I was still the uncertain graduate student who'd believed his compliments, who'd shrunk herself to fit his vision, who'd accepted crumbs and called them love. I knew exactly who I was now. Margaret had made sure of it. The art show opened on a Friday in January. 300 people attended. The Portland Museum of Art had never seen such a turnout. The collection was extraordinary. Margaret had acquired a Basquiat in 1983 for $1,500. She'd bought photographs by Nan Goldin before anyone knew her name, sculptures by Kara Walker, paintings by Julie Moretu. But the centerpiece wasn't the famous names. It was Margaret's own story. I'd curated the show as a biography. Each acquisition represented a moment in her life, a risk taken, a belief held, a future imagined. The wall text told her story. Immigrant granddaughter makes good. Restaurant family becomes art patrons. Woman builds legacy beyond money. And in the final room, I'd hung my own painting. The one I'd done of Margaret's garden. The one I'd left on the bed in Brooklyn. I'd gone back for it. Contacted David's neighbor. Offered $500 for someone to retrieve it from the house. It had been in the basement, forgotten. I'd restored it, reframed it. And beneath it, I'd placed Margaret's letter to me. The one she'd written before she died. The one that explained everything. The room was silent when people read it. They understood. Margaret Chen had been playing chess while everyone else played checkers. She'd sacrificed the visible game to win the invisible one. A reporter from the Boston Globe interviewed me. Asked about the story behind the show. I told her everything. It's Margaret's secret trust. David's 48 hours. My year of rebuilding. The reporter's eyes widened. That's incredible. That's a book. That's a documentary. That's proof that love is strategic and justice is patient. The article ran the following Sunday. Front page of the art section, complete with photographs of the collection and excerpts from Margaret's letter. By Monday morning, it had been picked up by national outlets. By Tuesday, I had book agents calling. By Wednesday, David sent his 30-second message. You've ruined me, everyone knows now. Everyone sees what you've done. I can't show my face anywhere. My mother turned you against me. She poisoned you. She never forgave me for being my father's son. Now you've made me a villain in a story you've fabricated. I didn't fabricate anything, David. I just stopped hiding the truth. His response was immediate and desperate. Please, Sarah, please. I'm begging you. I'll lose everything. The houses are in foreclosure. I can't maintain them. I can't pay the taxes. I have nothing. You have millions. Help me. If you ever loved me, help me. I sat with his message for a long time, thought about who I'd been when we met, who he'd helped me become, who I'd become despite him, thought about Margaret's lesson, that love means protecting people from their own weakness, that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their choices. I wrote back, David, I did love you. I loved you enough to believe you loved me too. But love isn't negotiable. It's not something you withdraw when it becomes inconvenient and restore when you need something. You gave me 48 hours to pack my life. You timed it perfectly to maximize my pain. You showed me exactly who you are. Margaret taught me something important. Strength isn't cruelty. Strength is boundaries. I'm not obligated to save you from yourself. I'm not responsible for your choices. I'm not your mother, and I'm not your victim. Sell the houses. Downsize your life. Get a job. Learn what it means to build something from nothing. It's hard, but it's honest. And maybe someday you'll understand what you actually lost. I'm not coming back. Not for money, not for guilt, not for history. I'm building something else now, something Margaret believed in, something real. Take care of yourself, David. I hope you find what you're looking for. I blocked his number after sending it, blocked his email, blocked every avenue of contact. He'd already taken enough of my life. He wouldn't get another moment. The show ran for 6 months. Over 50,000 people saw it. 3 museums acquired pieces for their permanent collections. The sales funded a scholarship at the Maine College of Art in Margaret's name. For students who show exceptional talent and exceptional resilience, I kept the Basquiat. Margaret would have wanted that. She'd bought it from Jean-Michel himself at a tiny gallery in Manhattan. She'd seen genius before the world did. That was her gift. Seeing value where others saw risk, I started teaching. Studio classes at the art college, advanced painting, professional practices. I told my students Margaret's story. It's not as tragedy, but as strategy. I taught them that success is rarely linear, that sometimes you have to lose everything to understand what matters. One student, a 19-year-old named Maya, approached me after class. My dad kicked me out when I came out as trans, gave me 1 night to pack. I thought my life was over. What did you do? I painted my way through it, found people who saw me, built something he couldn't touch. Kind of like you, exactly like me. That's the point. You survive, you create. You become undeniable. Carmen's gallery offered me a permanent position as curator. I accepted. We started focusing on emerging artists, people with talent but no connections, no wealthy families, no safety nets. We gave them walls and publicity and belief. We became known for discovering people. My own painting evolved, moved beyond anger into something more complex. I painted resilience. I painted transformation. I painted women rebuilding after destruction. The work sold steadily. I didn't need the money anymore, but I needed the process. Needed to create beauty from pain. 2 years after Margaret's death, I received a letter. Paper envelope, handwritten address, Vermont postmark. Inside was a single photograph. It's Margaret and me in her garden. She's laughing, covered in dirt. We'd spent the afternoon planting roses. I remembered that day, how light I'd felt, how possible everything had seemed. On the back, in handwriting I didn't recognize, someone had written, "She took this picture the day she changed her will, the day she knew you'd survive anything. She loved you more than you'll ever know." She knew. There was no signature, no return address. I never found out who sent it. Maybe Howard, maybe one of Margaret's old friends, maybe Margaret herself, arranging one final message from beyond death. I framed it, hung it in my studio. On days when I doubt myself, when the old insecurities creep back, I look at that photograph, Margaret's face, full of pride and mischief. At my own face, young and uncertain, but smiling. She always knew. 3 years after the funeral, I received a wedding invitation, David Chen and Catherine Morrison. The ceremony would be at a small venue in Connecticut, registry at Crate and Barrel. The invitation was forwarded through an old friend, someone who didn't know our history. I almost threw it away. Almost. But something made me look closer. The venue was modest. The registry practical. No mention of honeymoon or house or future plans, just a simple celebration of 2 people joining lives. I searched Catherine Morrison online. She was a middle school teacher, 42 years old, divorced with 2 teenage kids. Her social media showed camping trips and book clubs and PTA meetings. She looked kind, normal, real. I hoped she knew what she was getting into. Hoped David had learned something. Hoped he'd told her the truth about who he was and what he'd done. But I doubted it. Men like David don't confess. They revise. They rewrite history until they're the heroes of their own stories. I sent a gift anyway, not to David, to Catherine. A book about art history. Margaret's favorite. Inside, I wrote a note. Catherine, I'm David's ex-wife. We haven't spoken in years, but I wanted you to know something. Love should make you bigger, not smaller. Love should add to your life, not subtract from it. If you ever need anything, if you ever find yourself wondering if what you're experiencing is normal, call me. I've been where you might be going. I survived it. You will too. I included my number. I never heard from her. Maybe she threw the note away. Or maybe she thought I was bitter and jealous. Maybe David told her I was crazy, vindictive, obsessed. I didn't need her to understand. I just needed her to have the option. 5 years after Margaret's death, I published a book. It wasn't about David. It was about Margaret. It's about what it means to be believed in. About strategic love and invisible legacies. About women who protect other women across generations. The book became a bestseller, not blockbuster level, but steady. It found its audience. Women who'd been left, women who'd survived, women who'd rebuilt. They wrote me letters. Hundreds of them, thousands. They told me their stories, their 48 hours, their versions of David, their Margarets who'd saved them. The book became a movement, a language, a way of understanding that cruelty doesn't win. It just reveals itself. I never heard from David again after the wedding invitation. Sometimes I searched his name online, saw that he'd sold the Vermont properties, moved to Connecticut, started working for an investment firm. His social media showed a careful life, a pleasant life, a small life. He'd lost the inheritance through maintenance costs and taxes and bad investments, lost the brownstone to foreclosure, lost the legacy he'd protected so viciously. He was ordinary now, comfortable but not wealthy, secure but not special. I didn't feel sorry for him, didn't feel vindicated, didn't feel anything much at all. He was a chapter in my story, an important chapter, but finished. The story had moved on. 10 years after the funeral, on the anniversary of Margaret's death, I hosted an event at the museum, a memorial celebration. We showed the documentary that had been made about her collection. We displayed new acquisitions. We announced scholarship recipients. Over 200 people came. Artists Margaret had supported, students who'd received her scholarship, collectors who'd learned from her eye. Howard was there, 92 now, but sharp as ever. Carmen came, my students came, the community Margaret had built, even beyond death. At the end of the evening, I gave a short speech, thanked everyone for honoring her, shared my favorite Margaret story. The time she'd taken me to a gallery opening and a famous artist had ignored me completely. Margaret had stepped forward, introduced herself, and said, "This is Sarah Torres. She's a better painter than you. Just doesn't know it yet. But she will. And when she does, you'll wish you'd been kind today." The artist had laughed uncomfortably, but Margaret had meant it. She'd believed it. And eventually, she'd been right. That's what legacy means, not money, not property, not things you can sell. Legacy is belief that outlasts you. Love that transforms. Investment in people that compounds across decades. Margaret gave me 48 hours of hell. But she gave me a lifetime of proof that I mattered, that I was seen, that I was enough exactly as I was. The audience clapped. Some people cried. Howard approached me after moving slowly, leaning on a cane. "She'd be so proud of you, Sarah. This is exactly what she hoped you'd become." Did she know? Did she know how it would all turn out? He smiled. Margaret always knew. She just trusted you to figure it out too. I went home that night to my house, not an apartment anymore, a real house. 3 bedrooms. A dedicated studio. Garden where I was trying to grow roses like Margaret's. I was terrible at it. They kept dying, but I kept trying. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me. Sarah. A woman's voice, tentative, scared. "This is Catherine Morrison. Chen, we met, sort of, years ago. You sent me a book," I remembered. David's wife. Second wife. The teacher with 2 kids. "Yes. Hi, Catherine. Is everything okay?" There was a long pause. Then quietly, "I need to pack." He gave me 48 hours. I didn't know where else to call. My heart broke and healed simultaneously. Full circle. It's a cycle continuing. But this time, someone would answer the call. I'm coming. Tell me where you are. You're not alone. You're going to survive this, I promise. Because that's what Margaret taught me. That love is a relay race. You carry people until they can run, and you watch them carry others. The inheritance isn't money. It's knowing someone will answer when you call. It's proof that cruelty doesn't win. It's 48 hours of hell followed by a lifetime of becoming undeniable. I drove through the night to reach her, helped her pack, gave her the number for my lawyer, offered her my guest room until she found her feet. She cried, thanked me, asked why I'd helped someone I didn't know, because someone helped me, because that's how this works. Because 48 hours isn't the end. It's the beginning. Catherine stayed with me for 6 months. Long enough to divorce David. Long enough to find a teaching job in Maine. Long enough to understand she wasn't broken. She just believed someone who was. Her kids visited on weekends. Teenagers, sullen and confused. They painted with me sometimes, asked questions about their father. I answered honestly, not cruelly, just truthfully. They deserved that. The daughter Emma told me one afternoon, Dad said you were the villain. Said you stole Grandma's money. Said you ruined his life. Did your grandmother and I ever meet? No, she died before he married my mom. I nodded. That's convenient for his story. The truth is more complicated, but here's what matters. Your father makes choices. Those choices have consequences. The consequences aren't someone else's fault. They're his responsibility. That's what it means to be an adult. She thought about that. Then, I don't want to be like him. Then don't be. Choose differently. Choose kindness. Choose honesty. Choose people who make you bigger. Catherine eventually moved into her own place. A small house near the ocean. She planted a garden, started painting as therapy, joined a community of other women rebuilding. She was happy, genuinely happy, in a way she'd never been with David. I see her often now. We're friends. Real friends. We joke that we're part of an accidental sisterhood, the survivors of David Chen. We should get matching jackets. Sometimes at night I sit in my studio and think about that day. The rain, the funeral, the 48 hours. How destroyed I felt. Discern I was that my life had ended. I was wrong. My life had just started. Margaret knew. She always knew. And now, whenever someone asks me about success, about resilience, about surviving the unsurvivable, I tell them this. You can't control what people take from you. You can only control what you build after. You can't change someone's cruelty. You can only choose not to become cruel yourself. You can't force someone to see your value. You can only live in a way that makes you undeniable. Margaret left me everything. Not money, though that helped. Not art, though that mattered. She left me the knowledge that I was worth fighting for. Worth protecting. Worth believing in. Even when I couldn't believe in myself, that's inheritance. That's legacy. That's love. And David got exactly what he wanted. Got everything. The houses, the money, the will with his name. But Margaret had the last word, because inheritance isn't what you take. It's what you give. It's what survives you. It's what transforms lives you'll never meet. I carry her forward in my teaching, my art, in the women I help, in the belief I offer that they are enough. Always enough. Exactly as they are. 48 hours can destroy you or define you. The choice is yours. Margaret taught me that. And every day, I teach it to someone else. The cycle continues. Legacy grows. The love multiplies. And somewhere, I think Margaret is laughing. That fierce, knowing laugh. The one that says she knew all along how this story would end. Not with me broken, but with me whole. Not with me defeated, but with me stronger than I ever imagined possible. That's the real inheritance. That's what she left me. And now, 1 year after David thought he'd won everything, I understand the truth. He got what he wanted. I got what I needed. And those two things were never the same. Margaret knew that too. She always knew.